We're now going to go from a very polished Afrikaans English accent, which is almost indistinguishable from Sandton English, to the royal accent of James Campbell. I mean, he's now King Charles is getting lessons from him for speaking properly. And you're a bloody diamond miner. Are there honest people in diamond mining? Over to you, James.
Well, let me first say that I was in London last week and Prince Charles drove past and waved at me. How about that?
No, I'm saying nothing, eh?
I'm not going to answer the question either about are there any honest people in diamond mining. What I'm going to tell you today is a story about the discovery, the rediscovery, the corporate action, and very importantly, the economic returns of a diamond mine in Botswana. This has been published by the Botswana Institute of Geological Science because often history is written by the victors, and in this time I wanted to make sure that history was properly written. I did circulate my presentation to some colleagues of mine, and one of them was a lawyer and made amendments to this disclaimer, so it's all really good stuff.
No, I can summarize it. I've done that for years. Whatever I say is probably a lie. Nothing I say you can hold me to, and you can't sue me. So,
good summary. Yeah. Thank you, Bernard. I'm not going to pay you a fee for that either. So I'm going to firstly start with where we are today, because I think that's actually very, very important. Then I'm going to take you back to the 1960s about the discovery and early assessment. I'm going to fast forward to the year 2000 to look at the rediscovery and evaluation. I'm going to then pause for some reflections and conclusions. And interestingly enough, my very final slide, I think, answers the question that Bernard asked Neil right at the very end, or I hope it does. So what is Karowe Mine today? It's situated in northeast Botswana. It is in the middle of 85 kimberlites. Kimberlites are basically extinct volcanoes. And in this area, you have 8 or more have been diamond mines. So it's a very, very prolific part of Botswana. It's just south of the Makadikadi Pans and northeast of the Central Kalahari Game Reserve. And just next door to Karowe, you have the world's largest diamond mine, which is 118 hectares and still going strong 50 years later. Bernard always asks me to put a pretty lady with diamonds in my slides. Well, here we go. The exceptional thing about Karowe is the number of large diamonds it produces. It's produced 6 diamonds over 1,000 carats, including an almost 2,500 carat stone. And you'll see the numbers in this picture. And it's quite extraordinary you have such a beautiful diamond that can kind of sit in the palm of your hand. So despite the woes in the diamond industry at the moment, these kind of diamonds are in very high demand because they're bought by ultra-high net worth individuals. This is good. But what is actually...
Sorry, can you go back? I wasn't done looking at the girl. Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay. Well, people often say that a diamond industry person like myself just focuses on the beauty of the diamonds and the value of the diamonds. Yes, we do that. But what you'll see peppered in this presentation too as well is about the amount of money this has also made. And you'll see the second bullet here. This has produced $271 million in dividends, including reporting a dividend in its second year of operation. And I don't think there are very many mines out there that have produced a dividend in its second year of operation. So let's go back to kind of the beginning, the 1970s and the 1980s. At that time, De Beers discovered what was called AK6. It was considered too small, had poor mineral chemistry, and it had low grade, so it was kind of put in the back drawer. But I think it's very important to realize at that time what else was happening in Botswana and in the world. Well, in Botswana, De Beers had found Arapa, which, as you saw from this couple of slides earlier, was a massive mine. And they'd also found Letlhakane, and they were shortly about to find Draneng. So there was basically almost like a surfeit of natural diamonds. But at the same time of that, there was we were going through a period of economic stagflation. There was a stock market crash. Dow Jones lost 45%. The LSE's FTSE 30 lost 73%. So meanwhile, the explorers were finding all these wonderful things, but they couldn't sell the diamonds. So it was a period of very, very interesting corporate history. So fast forward to the 2000s, where we started to look at these old kimberlites, because there's a saying in the exploration industry that every time there's a change in technology or a paradigm shift in technology, your exploration clock starts ticking again. So we looked at AK6. It wasn't any 3.5 hectares anymore. It was 10 hectares. It wasn't 2.5 carats per 100 tons anymore. It was now 25 carats per 100 tons. But like the discovery times, the economic times were horrible. Now, those of us who've got a little bit of grey hair will remember the 2009. We called it annus horribilis at the time. It was a global financial crisis. You couldn't raise anything. Interestingly, when I was running African Diamonds at this time, a commentator said to me, well, we'd prefer to invest in the Royal Bank of Scotland than in you. Well, our share price went up, and the Royal Bank of Scotland's actually collapsed because it was part of this kind of financial aftermath. But as with any mine, there's always a good legal story, and there's always a kind of a corporate story that sits behind this. And I'm not expecting you to read all of this, but I'm going to lift out 3 really important points. The first one is in the middle. Our joint venture partner at that time, which was a very large corporate, decided that this was a sub-economic operation, and they wanted to put a retention license over it, which is allowable in Botswana law, but it's done by ad hoc decision by the minister. So it's not as in the form of a regulation. So we launched an urgent High Court interdict against this large corporate, and we won urgency, which was fantastic, absolutely superb, and that basically paved the way for the award of the mining license. Then I've mentioned about 2009. Later I'll talk about the capital. The large corporate couldn't fund the operation, so we were tasked with trying to find a buyer. For those of you who remember 2009, this wasn't a very, very easy time to actually find a buyer, but we did, and we found probably one of those phenomenal mining entrepreneurs I've ever met. He's passed on now, so may his soul rest in peace. But he funded this, and it was quite an interesting anecdote. How did he fund this? Well, he invited me to Paris for dinner, and I'd got no money at that time. I'd managed to kind of get there. He kind of poured a lot of red wine down my throat, asked me a whole load of questions. Then in the morning he said, we go for a 10-kilometer run, and then I'll tell you my answer at breakfast, which he did, and he bought it. And the check was made out to the corporate person within a week. Now, how about that? You know, no wonder he is a billionaire, and people like us are possibly not, maybe with the exception of Bernard. And then the final point, he made it quite clear that once he'd bought out the large corporate, that he would buy us out too, and being a gentleman he did, and he gave us a large premium for it. It was not without its drama, though. Sorry, it's not moving on. During this particular time that we were like front page of the Sunday Times, we were front page of the Mining MX, and one of the old editors of the Mining X is sitting at the back, and there was, I remember in the business section of the Sunday Times one Sunday, it called me a traitor in Afrikaans, because it basically referred to my corporate history with De Beers, but they forgot that I was no longer working with them, and I had my own shareholders at that time. Now, these 2 pictures were taken only 1 year apart, but I think you can probably see it looks like 10 years apart if you actually look at it now. So a few reflections. Firstly, from a technical perspective, I've already spoken about the old adage, and I tried to find a reference for it, and it was Mark Bristow, would you believe? He was the one who kind of actually said this.
Not surprised.
But it's really important. So whenever you go and look at new areas, always look at, are there changes in geological models? Are there changes in technology, whether it be exploration technology, whether it be metallurgical technology, which could change things? And the fundamental issue with this is that people did not know how to value large, high-quality diamonds. It was qualitative. And the corporate didn't understand this. We sort of understood it, and it was published in the SAIMM in 2009. And that was the very foundation of the value of this mine, these very, very large, beautiful diamonds. So there's a lot of kind of technical considerations underpinning this. There are also, as you would imagine, if any of you have joint ventured with a major, or if you're a major and you've joint ventured with a junior, there are lots of different dynamics at play here. We were joint ventured with a major who I'd worked for 20 years, but we were listed on the Botswana Stock Exchange and the London AIM market. We had shareholders who were quite different, and we could move differently and do different things. And nowhere could that be seen more clearly than actually if you look at the capital range of the mine. On the left-hand side, De Beers were looking at $380 million. We could do like a postage stamp operation for 88, but the equivalent, which is being done by the current operators, Lucara, was 165. So it's less than half the capital, but for exactly the same nameplate capacity. And phase one was $120 million and was delivered on time and on budget. And I will mention the name because they're one of the key sponsors, DRA. So thank you very much indeed. And delivered on time and budget, which meant that we could produce dividends in the second year of operation. Economic value. Now, this is really important. I'm going to more focus about how much money you would make rather than how big you are in terms of market cap. If you were a private investor who invested in African diamonds at the very beginning, you would have made 90 times your money. If you came in at the beginning, at the listed company level, you would have made 25 times your money. If you invested in every single capital raise, which is probably the most realistic way of actually looking at it, all the way from the very beginning all the way to the end, you would have made 10 times your money. Now, this is a rarity, and I feel very, very blessed to be part of it. And most of us exited a long time ago, because if you look at the graph in the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see that as you progress from surface to underground to get deeper and deeper, things become less and less economic. In particular, if you only have one asset which you are mining. So, from a conclusion perspective, corporate-wise, I think I've mentioned about different strategic agendas between juniors and majors. It's always an interesting thing. I've actually joint ventured with Alrosa as well, a Russian company, but that was quite good because the Russian manager and I got on well, and we both drank large amounts of vodka and beer. So that kind of greased the relationship. Cash is king. We all know that, especially at the bottom of the cycle. If you have cash, you can do particularly well. And from a technical perspective, I've spoken about the challenges with a large diamond valuation, and I've also spoken about a really important thing which is often missing, is the value of qualitative information, particularly if it's seen through the eyes of someone who's been there and done that a great deal of time. On the right-hand side is a kind of an off-print of the case study which is where this is published. So from a personal perspective, and I wanted to add this because I think it's important for those aspirant junior entrepreneurs in the business. Firstly, you've got to prepare to fight a very tough legal case with a well-funded opponent. We had some outstanding lawyers. Sadly, the guy who led the case has passed on. And we went up against a legal team which was like almost this room. I can remember it now. I almost cried, but we won. And we never gave up. You've got to develop a thick enough skin so when all of your friends see you in the Sunday Times and think you're a traitor, you haven't done anything wrong, really. You're just, doing what your shareholders actually asked to do. Thirdly, and this will resonate with many, many, many juniors actually here, you've got to be prepared to run your company with minimal overheads and with no income for many, many months. I think with African Diamonds, we probably didn't have any money for 6 months. And it is always, can we survive another week or two to kind of get the deal done, which we did. Never shortchange yourself on getting the best technical experts, never. Because that's how we were able to kind of crack the large diamond code. But typically, they actually own their own small businesses. They're kind of quite esoteric doctors of metallurgy and geology on the like. And then trust in your own judgment. And my kind of personal motto in this is never say die. Thank you, Bernard.
Oh, James. Please leave that on, if you don't mind. So, the audience is asleep. You're boring. Nobody sent any questions. You and I are going to have to...
Oh, go there.
Yeah, I know. Yes, but I told you, nobody's interested in diamonds. Not even I am. But I personally love the space of assets that don't fit in one corporate structure and or cycle, and the opportunities there. This is a classic case. Where else do you see that? Because, on the program, we've got mines reopening in Namibia. We've got many examples of this type of thing. Is that an area where you think typical junior miners and entrepreneurs should pay more attention? Should we go back to assets left behind by the majors?
Bernard, absolutely. Could I answer it on the next slide, which actually talks about the future?
I thought you'd done.
No. I said that I had left kind of the best. It's a very, very good question, because often people think that, has everything big been discovered? I'm not sure if many of you are aware of the so-called very large copper discovery made by Cubold in northern Zambia. Well, northern Zambia and copper has been going for, what, 60 years?
Yeah.
A very long period of time,
perhaps,
and Anglo-American and vast numbers of companies have gone there and actually explored. They've developed brilliant mines. They've kind of gone up and they've gone down. But Bill Gates, Jack Ma, Jeff Bezos, and kind of all the world's kind of tech entrepreneurs put a lot of money into looking at vast amounts of data. And typically what I think they did, and I think this goes to your question, is it wasn't necessarily data which was coming from copper mining companies, but other mining companies, but then they used it because often these large majors get quite myopic on their particular subject. So if you're De Beers, it's diamonds. If you're Anglo Gold, it's gold. But the data you collect is geological data and could have a vast amount of other stuff actually in it. So I think one of the future areas is harnessing large amounts of data, looking at it through the eyes of AI and some fancy stuff there, but also looking at it through the eyes of new technology, whether it's mining technology, processing technology, and also in the eyes of new geological deposits. I remember when we were looking at some gold deposits in Mozambique, and the gold models we were looking at there had never been seen in Africa before. And I passed it over to a gold expert, and he said, well, it's very common in South America, but we've never seen it here, so it probably doesn't exist. And I said, why? It's the same geology, same age. So we went back, and yes, there it was, different geological models. So geology, like science, like engineering, is always evolving. And so you must keep abreast of that and keep your eyes wide open.
Very good. Now, very few people successfully grow up in the mighty Anglo. You sat at the feet of the Oppenheimers, literally, in the office. You stepped out of it. Arguably, you're extremely successful in this different space. How the hell? Did you go for a brain op, or what happened between corporate James and this James? Share your journey.
It's really, Bernard, it's actually really quite a simple thing, and I consider myself blessed about the timing. As in any corporate, it's dead man's feet. My boss, who was a director of geology, there were 3 people who were kind of in the running for it. And I was not I wasn't the person who actually got the job. And so the person who got the job asked the other 2 people to leave. And
Oh, is that how it works?
yes.
I'm so shocked.
And so it's actually, I can remember it now. You don't know what to do. You've worked in a corporate for 20 years. You've worked all your way kind of going up through the system. You have no idea how to work in the real world. But what was really, really good, I was a project manager at De Beers for this particular project. And it was joint venture with De Beers, and my boss, and bless him, Bill McKechnie, phoned up the chairman of African Diamonds and said, I've actually got the perfect managing director for you, because he's just been retrenched. So it was like a baptism of fire. So I often put my kind of technical understanding of diamonds and kimberlites and geology, and I compliment De Beers for all of that. But for my corporate understanding and raising money, and you've hosted him before, because I'm now running my 3rd company under him, is Dr. John Teeling, who's still going strong at 80 and passes his best regards to you.
No, what a man.
Yeah.
What a man. These social media pictures of yours, and I'm not talking about the ballet now, I'm talking about you being out there in the bush in this English Toyota Prado. What is that thing called? Land Rover. I mean, that thing.
It's Toyota, it's Japanese.
Is it a bloody Toyota?
Yeah, no
I
English.
thought you try and pretend to have a Toyota.
No.
So, I mean, you pretend to be a geologist at heart. Are you really out there in the bush exploring? Or is that just fake? Are you just like a
No,
TikToker?
Bernard.
What are these people on?
If you run a junior and you are raising money from ordinary people, whether it's £10,000, £50,000, etc., you've got to be able to tell them where you're taking the samples, what you're actually doing and be authentic and credible about it. And what I try and teach youngsters, and I'm hosting the 4th year VIT students at Marsfontein actually this Saturday, is that you can never lose sight of your core discipline. So Botswana Diamonds is an exploration and development company. I'm a professional geologist and kind of a part-time engineer too as well on it. And the minute you start to lose that thread on your technical discipline, then I think you must go and work for a corporate or go and do something else. I think it's absolutely critical. We're a one permanent person company. And we use virtual accountants, lawyers, drillers, etc., to come and support us, doing campaign work when we need it. We could have thousands at one point, we could have nobody at some point. So we've got to be able to do this, and if I can't actually keep direct base in terms of the core discipline, I think we would be lost.
I think Hume Scholes may approve of your geological skills, but I'm not going to ask you. I want to go to the online questions just quickly. You may not want to answer this one. Any comment on the current state of Karowe?
I think I've answered that one possibly earlier, that it's a surface operation that's gone underground, and it's a one-asset company. And they are being challenged because of that. And I think the overlay challenge behind that is the state of the diamond market at the moment, which is poor.
Can we go there? This is the next question. What would you say are the prospects of the diamond industry going into the future with the advent of lab-grown diamonds seeming to take significant market share or affecting the price?
I think we're going through a fundamental change in the diamond market at the moment. It was kind of catalyzed when the Lightbox sold synthetic diamonds or lab-grown diamonds into the jewelry industry. That kind of spawned a whole load of wannabes. So the American market, which is 50% of the world's market, is now 70% lab-grown diamonds. So at the bottom end of the market, it's taken a large chunk. Top end of the market is still fine. But what it will need in order to find a new path, I don't think it will ever go back to what it was in the past. It will be a very new future and could be bright, is the successful sale of De Beers by Anglo American. Whatever shape or form that might be. It's a bit like if you've had a house on the market for a year and a half, like De Beers has been on the market for a year and a half. It's got to be sold. It's got to go to someone who is passionate, who is knowledgeable, who has a strong marketing drive and a clear vision. And if they have that, then the diamond market will start to perform again, but probably never to what it was in the past.
When I see De Beers repositioning now around lab-grown diamonds and where they fit in, I get that. But then I cynically think, but De Beers, did you not make this problem? Did you not contribute to this problem? Did the diamond industry make their own problem with this lab-grown diamonds or not? I'm an outsider, so I'll just go on what I read and see.
I've got to be careful what I say here, but yes, I agree with you there. My previous chairman, who you quite rightly said was one of the Oppenheimers, would have said, over my dead body would we do this. Because once you kind of confuse in the eyes of your customer the value proposition of a diamond, you're done. So there was a wonderful little TikTok video which went on, I don't do TikTok, but it went on to LinkedIn. And what this video did was, it was a very young, dynamic New York diamond entrepreneur, and she went and interviewed several couples who had bought what they purported to be natural diamonds on the streets of New York. She photoed, and they went in and she asked, could I test them? And of course, you know, the man said, no, I'm not sure about that. And the woman said, yeah, no, please, no, we'd like to test these things. And there were two video cameras going, one in the room, one next door. Well, half the diamonds which were tested, which were purported to have cost thousands of dollars, were synthetic diamonds. And so you can imagine the handbags flying and the kerfuffle going actually next door. And the problem is now you've let that cat out of the bag, because it's unlike a Louis Vuitton handbag or something, which may or may not be real. I don't know who's actually got them here and whether you know whether they're real or not. But it's even more difficult to tell a natural diamond from a synthetic diamond.
Don't look at my wife.
I'm not looking at anybody.
Don't look at so next year, as a free service, we will at the door test your diamond. Okay? As a free service, bring your wife and her diamond, and we will test it for you. I must say, again, as somebody who watched from the outside, it looked like a moment of madness. It truly looked like madness to create this perception that, I mean, it was brain damage. Yeah.
But what separates us from animals? What separates us from animals
That's
is
too
things
philosophical
such as
now.
love and the expression of love and things like that, Bernard.
It's getting very
You're just a boring
philosophical.
old gold miner, that's what you
For
are.
a geologist, for a geologist. So, James, if you spoke to a young person who's keen to get into mining in southern Africa, where? What is the commodity and where would you go?
In southern Africa.
Yeah.
I thought Gervais Williams and the other gentlemen coming from London were pretty accurate, and having been in London last week, that seems to be where the money is going, gold.
But I'm
tin,
looking for the ore body now. So where will you go look for the ore body so that you can go to London for the funding?
Do you think I'm going to give my IP away?
Really, I don't know.
Well, let me tell you that we actually found a new greenstone belt in a neighboring country which had not been seen before using artificial intelligence.
I'm so glad I follow you on social media. I will see where you were.
Only
and
once
go and
this week.
take it. You see, I've got my own IP. The reason I thought James's presentation should land is not everybody is a geologist, but he is. Not everybody has got the means to go and explore. And yet, in a cyclical business, there are opportunities. I mean, Neil shared with us, he's running a successful business on the tailings of a previous generation's worth of mining. Over the 2 days, we're going to see the reopening of old mines. I mean, there are so many opportunities, and this is a spectacular, spectacular success story. One of the reasons why investors back management is somebody who's done it once. It's more likely to succeed the second time than somebody who's never done anything like this. So, I mean, you could see why. He's perhaps going to find funding easier than me, and so it should be. But somewhere you have to go and do it the first time and build up your credibility. Mr. Campbell, as always, you'll be back again. Bye, donkey.
Thank you, Bernard. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.